Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. November is here, October is gone. I had a bit of an up and down reading month, so stick around and I'll talk you through it. So yeah, October, as I say, was a bit of an up and down month for me, with some really high scores and some, for me, really low scores. I don't go too low on a 5-star scale because if they're going to be that low, I will DNF instead. But yeah, it was a bit of a mixed bag of reads this month. I had 5 books that I finished. I'll go through the stats for you first of all. Timestamps will be down below, so you can skip this bit if you want to go straight to the books. Otherwise, I'll talk you through them now. So for 5 books completed, that gave me 2,755 pages read in October, 23,215 pages now year to date. The average number of pages that I read in October was pretty good. I like it when it's above 500. I had 551 for the month, which takes me to 490 year to date, and it was a very average month, I guess, in terms of the average rating. I had exactly 4 for my October reads, so the year to date remains at 4.01, almost the same figure. For the series, I've now started 20, so I'm over 20 series started in the 1 year. I've only finished 4 though, so that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's not something that I'm particularly bothered by. I've got 7 series now that I'm not continuing with. 2 of those came in October, so that's where I read the first book in the series and decided, although I finished that book, I'm not going to continue and read book 2 in the series. I've got 21 series now that I'm reading, and I've read the most recently published book, so I'm up to date with those. And I've got 42 series in total, including those 21 that I'm in the middle of at the moment, series that are ongoing. And then the final stat, the days since the last 5-star read, well, it's the last book that I finished, so that's sitting at 2 days. So taking you into the books then, I start with a rollover. This one, Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne, book 3, the final book in the Bloodsworn saga. I started it last month, or the month before I guess. I started it in September, didn't manage to finish it, so I carried it through to October. I really enjoyed this. I just couldn't find the time to get deep into it and to read a good number of pages in one go, which is why it was taking me so long to read it, and it ended up being carried over. But it was a great finale to the series. I've really enjoyed it. The first book in the series, The Shadow of the Gods, was a little bit kind of slow starting for me. It was not really what I was used to. It took me a while to get I guess most of it was taking me a while to get used to the language rather than anything else, but that sets you in good stead because there is a lot of unfamiliar language in this one, probably more than the other 2 books in the series combined, because there's a lot of magic. There are a lot of magical battles, and that's where you see the unusual language, the Norse-inspired language being used. And for me, that's probably one of the main things that I didn't like about the series, but this book in particular, because you had all of this italics, basically, this Norse-inspired language, and it slows me down if I try to read it and pronounce those words because it's so unfamiliar to me. So I will skip those sections, and normally you will have an English translation then underneath. For some of the spells, maybe not so, but you're aware that they're spells. You don't need them to be translated word for word, so that's fine. But it does seem to, as I say, kind of slow me down a little bit initially, or I feel like I'm skipping over sometimes vast sections of the book because I'm just not reading these essentially foreign words. So it kind of feels a little bit strange in that sense when I'm coming across these big magical battles and I've got all of these passages that I'm just skimming through, bits that are being said, basically. It makes me feel kind of wrong. It makes me feel almost like I'm cheating, I suppose, in a way. But outside of that, it was really good. I loved that you got good closure to, well, you got closure, not necessarily good closure in some cases, to all of the characters that we've grown up with in this series. I really did enjoy that. It was a little bit formulaic, I suppose. You had these great big battles towards the end of the book, and within those, everyone was picking out their individual grudges and settling those grudges, getting vengeance for people they've lost along the way and things like that. And it just seemed like a bit unusual, a bit impossible that everyone would be able to meet up with their enemy, their one solo enemy in this giant battlefield. But outside of that, I really enjoyed the series. There was some great action scenes, some great character moments, a nice kind of cathartic ending for some of the characters in here as well. And yeah, if you haven't read the Bloodsworn saga, it's a series complete now, so you can go out and binge all 3 books. This one, Fury of the Gods, was a 5-star read for me. Next up, I read an audiobook. It was Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler, book 1 of Burning Blade and Silver Eye. I can't remember what it's called. It's not even on the book, so Burning Blade and Silver Eye, there we go, it's down at the bottom there. I knew roughly what it was. This was a disappointment for me. I quite liked some of the characters, I quite liked some of the ideas and the world, but all of it together didn't quite work for me. The main thing that I didn't like about this one, though, I will admit, was the audio. If I had read it physically or on my Kindle, I feel like I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more, but how much more, I don't know. Similarly, if I was going to continue the series, which I am not, I would read it rather than listening to it, because the narration really put me off. The actual narrative part of it was okay. Nothing really to write home about there. But some of the character voices were so off-putting for me. We've got these great kind of underground characters, these great criminal masterminds, really intelligent people, but the voices that were given to them by the narrator just really didn't fit for me. It made them sound, and this is being hugely prejudiced, I know, but it made them sound like they were a few tools short of a toolbox. They didn't quite sound like your criminal masterminds. They sounded, at one point I explained in my Patreon video, some of the characters sounded a little bit like Goofy, Disney's Goofy. It was that kind of intonation that they were being given. And I said the narrative part of it was okay, but some of it did kind of sound a little bit like the narrator was reading out a children's book, except you would have this nice airy voice, sounds like it's children's book, but then it would be explaining and detailing blood splatter across the side of a carriage as someone's throat was slit, and it was kind of really out of place. It was almost funny in that respect. But anyway, I really didn't like the narration. I'd go so far as to say I hated the narration. To be honest, it didn't fit this book at all for me. The overall idea, though, as I say, and some of the characters, despite the voices, I actually did like. I liked following them along. I liked the little adventures that they went on, sort of zip-wiring away from people across this massive chasm and things like that. It was just really cool. There's some great ideas in here, but yeah, overall, it was a letdown. As I say, I would have enjoyed it more if I'd have read it and not listened to the audiobook. I'm pretty sure of that, but how much more, I don't know. I ended up giving it 3 stars only. Then I read Seeds of War, book 1 of the Smokesmiths by João F. Silva. This was one that I'd read the opening chapter of previously, and I really enjoyed it. It was a very interesting world. You had all these strange creatures, and I like how you have world building that doesn't just rely on everything that we know, but put into a new place, and you get new geography basically and a bit of magic and stuff like that. This one, you got all these strange creatures as well, and you've got the Smokesmiths of the series title, who were really cool. So I enjoyed that. The rest of the book, after we got out of chapter 1, which I reread, kind of followed on that path, and obviously we had the continuation of the storyline that I'd seen from there, and we had new characters that were introduced as well. The problem for me was I really didn't like one of the new characters, and I preferred the people around him rather than him himself, and listening to it or seeing what they were doing. But obviously he's the main focus, he's the point of view character, so you don't really see too much of them. The overall idea of the Smokesmiths I thought was really cool, and seeing some of the battles where you've got these people kind of dancing through smoke and mist that they've created around themselves, I thought was really, really cool, really well done. The only issue I had with it is I'm a very visual reader. I can tend to picture what's going on, and it was so kind of chaotic in those scenes that it didn't really allow me to do that very well. So for me, on a personal level, that was, I guess, kind of a little bit disappointing. Overall, I thought the book was pretty good, though. The narration, because it was another audiobook that I listened to, was good, and the voices were good, especially compared to the previous one that I've just spoken about. The overall kind of story kind of slowed down for me a little bit in the kind of the middle third, and it didn't really pick up enough. It didn't get me back on track enough towards the end of the book. So sadly, this is another one that I didn't enjoy as much as I wanted to and thought I would, and it's one that I decided again not to continue with and read book 2 of the series. It was one that I gave 3.5 stars to. Then I had an arc. This is another one that took me a long time, and I ended up, I was thinking I was going to end up carrying this one over as well, but this was Drowned Deep by Phil Williams, book 2 of the Blood Scouts. Now, if you've seen my channel over the last year or two, you probably know that I really, really enjoyed book 1 in this series, However Many Must Die. It was so refreshing for me. I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend it. Go out, pick yourself up a copy. This one follows on kind of directly after. You've got a narrative continuation. We're focusing again on Wild Wish, who is a main character and the cover star of book 1 in the series. The issue for me here is that everyone around her is gone. We kind of knew that from the end of book 1 and where we were going to be. But I was kind of expecting that she'd bring the band back together probably quite quickly, and we'd have another, I guess, similar adventure. That didn't really happen. That wasn't the focus of this book. It was a new group who were around her. There were only a couple of the original Blood Scouts there. One who didn't really play too big a part in this one, and another one who, again, despite not playing too big a part, she also wasn't really a big part in book 1. I can't even remember if I recognised her name from book 1, so yeah, it was kind of a character from the periphery who was brought in this one. There was also Captain Braid, who was another character who was quite important in book 1. He was here as well, so again, a little bit of familiarity there. Everyone else, though, was brand new. They were a new group that was brought together around Wild Wish, and for me, it kind of lost the charm a little bit, because I love books where you've got this close-knit group and you've got all the banter, you've got the relationships that already exist, and you can see how close these people are to each other and how things that happen to others affect them and stuff like that. That was kind of missing here, because it was a new group getting to know each other, and people were quiet. They weren't quite themselves around these new people for obvious reasons. So for me, it was, rather than, I don't like to use the word disappointing, I would say it was more sad for me, because I didn't get what I wanted and what I really enjoyed from the first book. So it's definitely, in my opinion, for my taste, it was quite a sizable step down from However Many Must Die. It was still a good book. It still gave us some of the other characters aside. It gave us some of the other things that I really liked about book 1 in the series. You had this really gritty world, this dark and muddy, very muddy in this sense, world. So everything's kind of really dirty, and you've got the struggles of, first of all, war, but also the struggles of war in this case. It was kind of marshy, boggy territory, and the difficulties that gives you, and the creatures that live there as well. So it's a really well detailed world, really well envisioned, and it just works very well for the story and becomes almost a character in itself. I liked the overall story, but not as much, not nearly as much as in book 1. And again, the characters were the main thing. It did kind of lose that bit of charm, as I say, from book 1 for me. So yeah, not as good as I was hoping this one was going to be. However, there were some sparks at the end where it suggested the possibility that book 3 might be getting back more towards where book 1 was. And of course, I'm a bit more familiar with the other characters who are going to be carrying over, presumably, to book 3 as well. So I will continue this series. I'm definitely still looking forward to that book, of which at this point I know absolutely nothing about beyond what is hinted at the end of book 2. But yeah, this one was one that I gave 3.5 stars to. So it was good, but not as good as I wanted it to be. And then my final book of the month, I had a little bit of time left, so I wanted to see what was available on Audible. I went to the Plus catalogue where Audible members have 3 books that are available to them. They can listen to them without a credit, basically. And I found one on there called Last Man Standing by Craig A. Faulkner. This is book 1 of the Earthburst saga. And there are 9 books available of this series, which is great if you want something to get your teeth into. I gave this one a go, and I'm really glad I did, because I had a great time with it. I really enjoyed it. It's probably, I'm more enthusiastic about this one, I guess, than I otherwise would be, at least, because it was just unknown. I'd not heard of this, I've seen no one talking about it, and I therefore just picked it up on a whim. It sounded pretty good, was really enjoying it, and therefore it just really surprised me, basically. I've seen it in reviews described as a bit like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and I can absolutely see why, because it does have some of the same kind of parallels. You've got a scientist essentially stranded in space, trying to work out what's gone on, what's going forwards, trying to get back home, basically, and using his mind to help him with that. It's a very different set of scenarios. Otherwise, that's kind of the only real similarity. I guess it's got a similar narrative tone as well, but the storyline, they are nothing alike. So I can see the comparison, and I would say possibly that it's more akin to a Project Hail Mary light, because the science is a lot lighter on this one. It doesn't go as deep into it. So if you like Project Hail Mary, especially the audiobook, which was fantastic as well, I suggest that you might have a really good time with this one as well. But if you found the science a bit too much in Project Hail Mary, definitely give this one a go. I liked the character, he was very likeable, and I liked some of the side characters who you kind of saw through as the story developed. I'm not going to go into kind of who they are and where they come from and what they're doing, because obviously I don't want to give anything away with what is essentially a single person story, as I guess the title suggests. There were some really good parts in this one, though. I like some of the little issues that crop up along the way as you're following this scientist who is a guest scientist essentially on this space station. He's not one of the staff there, he's just got up there to conduct an experiment. So he's not got all of the familiarity with the company, he's not got the familiarity with the space station, he's not got the access to it. But as the last man standing, he's trying to find those things out. He's trying to get around the space station and figure out what's going on, and how he can contact Earth and how he can get back down there and so forth. It was a book with some really good twists and turns, I thought. I thought they were very well done, both the idea of them and the way that they were handled, and his reaction to them as well. And overall, it was just a really enjoyable read, and a really good audiobook narration as well. This is one that I gave 5 stars to. Highly recommend it for sci-fi fans, especially, as I say, those who enjoyed Andy Weir's writing. And it's one that I'm looking forward to, because as I say, it's a 9-book series, so maybe not next month, but I will be continuing with this series, and hopefully continuing to enjoy it as well. So there we go. As I say, it was a bit of an up and down October, bracketed for me with 5-star reads, which is fantastic. So I think I've had 5 now this year, only 5 5-star reads, and 2 of them in October. So finishing the year strong. Let's hope that continues. What did you read in October? Did you have a really good time with any of the books that you picked up? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll hopefully see you in the next video sometime soon, but in the meantime, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.